Don't walk into it with a fearful state of mind, because that can really paralyze us. And you are feeling fearful about what you're doing. It's probably holding back your homeschool. It's probably holding back your high schooler's education.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course, because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
Before we get deep into the weeds of what has become one of my favorite topics and subjects to talk about, which is funny and ironic because when I started homeschooling, I was terrified of the high school years and didn't think I could do it. And now I'm like, yes, if I can do it, you can do it. So I want to make an announcement, just a reminder here. This has nothing to do with today's episode, but I want to remind you about a new resource that I talked all about on Monday that is available right now. And it is there for you to help you with meal planning and getting food that aligns with your budget and nutrition guidelines onto your table. That has become important to me over the years, and I'm sharing what really has taken me years to learn and to put together. And it's just a simple system. You think, oh, why did it take her so long? And once you go through, you'll be like, oh, this is actually really simple and something that you can continue to do every single week. And it takes a lot of the decisions and a lot of the thought, deep thought out of the process, because I know it can be a struggle to get 3 meals plus probably snacks onto the table every single day. And so I want to make that easy for you. You can go to littlebylittlehomeschool.com/meal, spelled MEAL. The link will also be in the show notes. But now let's talk about the fact that it really is, the title of this isn't a question, because it is possible to customize your homeschool high schooler's education. You don't have to resort just to schooling them. There is a difference, and it does not mean that you cannot receive an education in private or public school. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is with homeschool, you don't have to do any of the school part. You can just do the education part. If you and I have not met, my name is Leigh, and I have 3 children. They are currently 22, 20, and 17. My 22-year-old and 20-year-old are obviously done with their homeschool education and have moved on to things that God has called them to, and they are doing really well. So here I am with my 3rd and final homeschooler, and he is in what you would traditionally call 11th grade. And so we have at this time a year and possibly a quarter left of what we would say would fall into our homeschool regulations of what he has left for high school until he then is, graduated. So that's where I stand right now. And so I'm going to share with you what I have learned and some of what I have done. And even if you don't have high schoolers right now, if you just have young children and you are listening to this episode, I love that. Good for you, because we can be so afraid of something, but once we actually do it, we're not afraid. Say you wanted to try something brand new, whether that is in the kitchen. Maybe it's a new meal you want to add to your meal planning and the menu that you have. Hint, hint, go back to that resource. Or maybe it is a new hobby, a new sport, a new just something that you want to learn how to do. It feels really scary. And once you start doing it and you start saying, I can do this, that doesn't mean it's not hard, but you're like, oh, it's not so scary anymore. And so today is going to arm you with lots of information if your kids aren't quite to high school yet, so that you don't walk into it with a fearful state of mind, because that can really paralyze us. And if you currently have teenagers, you have high schoolers, and you are in a position of feeling fearful about what you're doing, it's probably holding back your homeschool. It's probably holding back your high schooler's education. So listen very carefully, take some notes, and then make some appropriate changes to your homeschool high schoolers' education. Today, I'm going to talk about my approach to the homeschooling of the high school years, and it has really grown and changed over the years. You know how I've started, probably like you, a bit fearful and had to work myself out of that. And so through today's episode, I hope that you gain that freedom much sooner than I did. So here's my approach. First thing is that I live in the state of New York. In the state of New York, we do have some, we'll say in air quotes, strict homeschool regulations. We'll say, strict is kind of a relative term. I've been homeschooling we're getting close to our end of our 14th year. And so to me, I'm like, it's not really that strict. But when you first start off, it really does feel that. But it's also strict compared to some states who basically don't even know that your children exist. And then maybe a little above that, some states might be like, we just want to know that they're not coming to kindergarten. We just want to know that you're going to be homeschooling them, just so we can cross them off a list and not have to worry about them. But in my state, we have some homeschool regulations, and we have certain, you might want to say credits. In the state, under the homeschool regulations, they call them units. So the same thing, units, credits, same exact thing. So we have certain ones that we need to meet. And if you most likely went through high school, you're kind of familiar with that as well. You know that, okay, there's a certain amount of science, there's a certain amount of English, maybe a certain amount of, they might call it social studies, or they might have a foreign language requirement. There might be all these different requirements. And so in my state, they do. And there are probably about, around 5, I think, very strict states. And I have lived and homeschooled in 2 of them. And if I can do that, you can do it as well. So my goal is always to meet those homeschool regulations as soon as possible. And I work towards that in the 9th and 10th grade years. And for each kid, that looks slightly different. It looks different, the courses that we take and the resources that we use. But I want to try to get as much as we can done in that 9th and 10th grade year. What does that look like? We'll get into that in just a minute. Then we still have some, of course, 11th grade and maybe possibly some 12th grade. But the bulk of that is done. And during that time as well, it's not like they're just sitting there and with their head down in textbooks and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely not. We are working towards education and not just checking off boxes. But there is a way to balance that, and there's actually a need, and I want to highly encourage you to balance that with giving them free time. This is a great time when they are really honing in on what their interests are and what all the possibilities for their future. Now, we focus so much on next steps for being able to make an income. And I have a little bit of an issue with that because there's so much more to life. When we make their education just about how much money can you make, then we miss out on the education. Now, yes, they are going to need a way of supporting themselves. And then possibly a family, or being joint supporters in a family, getting married, or where they have dual income, or, whatever the scenario is eventually. But most likely when they finish up their homeschool high school at 18, they're probably not looking at that as far as needing to support anybody else. And you're not necessarily probably kicking them right out of the house the day after they're done with their homeschool education. So they don't have to support themselves immediately afterwards. But it's a great time for them to explore their options. It's a great time to be able to try things out. It's a great time to just have free time to try hobbies out and to get things wrong and to mess up and then say, oh, I'm not really interested in that. But it takes them to the next step of something that they really are interested in. And so I really have tried to tailor their subjects even that they're doing, even the science that they are doing. And I did this more and more with each child. I mean, I would say mostly the third one. I really tailored specifically his science. He's much more science-minded, whereas the other 2, they got it and they did fine, but I just kind of went a little bit more traditional with them. And therefore with him, I was like, traditional isn't going to really do anything for him. He already knows basically the traditional way of approaching, let's say, chemistry. We're going to do it differently. And so balancing that also with pushing them to try things that are hard. And some people have the argument of if they don't go to school, then they won't know how to do hard things. Well, there's a lot of hard things that kids and teens are going to do outside of a school environment. So balancing that with pushing through and actually doing some subjects that aren't as easy. So if you have a very science technical minded child, then it might be the English and the history that are a little bit, we'll say in air quotes, harder for them. It's just more of a challenge. And how can you make that in a way where you can capture their attention and their desire, and they can see that there is a reason for understanding history, and then there's a reason for doing English and learning how to write and being able to read and comprehend and understand things well. Create opportunities for your kids, opportunities as far as when they can participate in something, maybe lead something, possibly alongside you or somebody else. Maybe they have a Sunday school class, maybe this like second grade Sunday school class that they are helping to teach. Maybe it is volunteering places. Maybe it is getting a job, but creating opportunities for them, obviously outside the home. We know that getting socialization is not a difficult thing, but create opportunities for them to try things. Take them on field trips. Go places that you possibly think they might be interested in. Maybe it is a certain field. Call, ask if you can take a field trip. You don't have to call it a field trip, but just say, hey, I have a homeschooler who is interested in whatever it is. Say it is plumbing, electricity, or fine arts, or I don't know, the medical, whatever it is, and call and see if you're able to bring them in just to kind of maybe look around and get some questions answered. Meet people. If there is a field of a study or there is some type of higher education or something that they want to get into, then try to connect them with people. Maybe they're really interested in becoming a veterinarian and you try to find a veterinarian, or maybe you meet somebody from years ago and you're friends for a while and your kid kind of starts talking, they're like, oh, okay. So for example, my son is really into videography and he has an opportunity to do a couple of weddings for friends this summer. And so we're working really hard on, I'm just giving him lots of resources so he can figure out how he is actually going to do this. And this is going to be like learning as he goes. But one of the people I'm going to connect him with is the woman who was a photographer for Little by Little Homeschool Conference, which, by the way, stay tuned, coming up here soon this month, more information coming with that. But she does weddings. And even though she's not a videographer, she understands like the feel and how to present yourself and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, would you have a phone conversation with him? So maybe you can kind of just relay some information to him. And so that's somebody that I had met back last summer. And I was like, wait a minute, she's so friendly and so great. Why don't we connect? So think about those kinds of opportunities where you can connect people together with your team. Now, curriculum, this is a huge point I want to make. Curriculum isn't always just textbooks. You could just have them read books. My entrepreneur began really reading business books, and he didn't want to read any type of fiction any longer. And I had found some types of resources and online and things that had to do with owning a business and accounting and entrepreneurship. But really, it was just getting his hands on books that he could find at the library or that he had heard and he really wanted, or he borrowed them from the library and wanted his own copy of them. And so he just bought them from Amazon or thrift books or something like that. But just remember, curriculum doesn't always have to be just textbooks. I'm going to tell you right now that my current high schooler, how much of his high school education was textbooks? Not very much. That's what we're just going to put it like that. Not very much was actually textbooks. I have created what I would say would be a course just with regular books. Imagine that, huh? We don't need a certain type of curriculum all the time. Now, curriculum, I'm not knocking curriculum. It has its place. It's great. But especially when it comes to high school, it doesn't always have to be a textbook. Your high schooler does not need to be taught. They have to learn to teach themselves. If your high schooler is not independent yet, we're going to say yet, there is an episode that I have about becoming independent, and I will drop that link in the show notes. You'll have to kind of adjust a little bit maybe because they are a little bit older, and that's okay. It's never too late. You could have a 17-year-old, and it's not too late to teach them to become an independent learner. It's going to be them learning themselves for the rest of their life. They're not going to have mom telling them to do it after a certain point. And so if we can create a desire within them to continue to learn and not see it as a bad thing, when we're in school, we equate learning with a negative thing because we're constantly having to write papers and get report cards and take tests, and there's always a measurement, and we feel like we are always not doing well. And so if they can, now when you homeschool, you don't have to show them that that's what learning is. because most of your learning and education is actually going to take place once your homeschool is done. Think about yourself. How much have you learned in the whatever amount of years since you graduated high school? Oh, wow, this is really going to date me. Let's say I graduated high school 31 years ago. Okay, so that's like double the amount of time that I had spent in school. So even let's just take the past 13 years, K through 12th grade. So we'll take the past 13 years. I've learned more in that time than I did otherwise. And okay, yeah, I learned how to read and all these really big things, but I've continued to learn, and you have too, and I really hope you have. Now, your courses, again, let me reiterate, they don't always have to be traditionally done. So yes, it can be other books, and it can be other ways of doing things. For example, the chemistry, I had an entire chemistry course, textbook, all the things, Bunsen burner, all the things. I don't know what I did with the Bunsen burner. I remember burning things in chemistry because I was told to, and tons of math. But I decided, what if we approach this differently? And he actually understood chemistry. I can ask him about probably any element on the periodic table and maybe ask him about other ones and how would they interact with each other, and he could tell me because he really was interested in it. And we just took a different approach with just regular books. And there's this thing called the internet, and there's this thing called YouTube on the internet. And we learned a lot. I learned a lot. I don't remember most of it, but he does. But so you don't always have to approach it traditionally. Now, unless your child is enrolled like full-time or maybe even part-time in school or doing dual enrollment, we're just going to say overall. Now, I'm not familiar with every single homeschool state, like the regulations in every single state. So there could be maybe one that's not quite, but people will say, well, I want to take an accredited course so that a college will recognize it. Well, listen, I'm pretty positive that there are no accredited courses. You get the accreditation because you're enrolled in the school system. And guess what? It's okay. You don't have to take homeschool, high school accredited because you're not going to find it, because they can't get accredited, because they can't guarantee that you're actually doing what you're supposed to do in order to do the accreditation. Now, there can be ones that might have language similar to that, and it's up to you if that's important to you or not, but it's okay not to. Colleges more and more understand homeschool. And if your child is on a college track, don't worry, okay? Don't think that just because it's not accredited that it's not going to be worth it. And also when it comes to just their education overall, you don't have to do every single subject and in a way that you would do traditionally. So think in a school, you have to do X amount of science, you have to do X amount of English, and maybe they might call it social sciences or social studies, and you might have electives and all those things. You don't have to spend so much time on every single subject. I think it's okay for their education to be a little unbalanced. If you have one that is really interested in writing, interested in the arts or fine arts, history, then that can be a little unbalanced with the math and science. Maybe that's because the math and science, they don't get up to physics and trigonometry, but don't ignore that. Let's still do some math. I highly recommend some type of consumer math so that when they get out into the world, actually understand what's going on and how to actually use numbers and money and that kind of stuff in a realistic way. So don't think that every subject has to weigh the same amount of time that you spend on it. It's okay for it to be unbalanced, and especially as they get towards the end of their homeschool education. So remember I said in the beginning, I meet the homeschool regulations, and then at the end, there is so much more free time for them to pursue those last 1 to 2 years, at least, that they can pursue what they're interested in doing as far as next steps beyond homeschooling. And they don't have to know. And it's okay if they spend their time pursuing something during those last couple of high school years or even during their entire high school years, and they don't actually end up doing that as a career. It's not wasted time. They've learned something, and they've just grown into the next thing. So let go from that traditional mindset of what it has to look like, and especially those last 1 to 2 years. Let them explore the world and try things. Take them places. Take them on college tours if you think that's what they're interested in. Take them to trade schools. Take them to businesses and stores and meet business people, entrepreneurs, and take them to, I don't know, everywhere that you think that they're possibly interested in, and let them actually see, what does it look like? You might have a child that says, oh, I really want to be a nurse, but they've never seen any type of what nursing could be. Well, take them some places. Now, there's going to be a little bit of, patient confidentiality, but maybe it's just sitting down with a friend that you have that's a nurse, and you just have them over for dinner, or your teen meets them for coffee, and they actually get to hear, what is it actually like to be a nurse? And that way they know, they have the information, and they can make that decision. And they might say, you know what? That's actually not what I want to do. And remember, there's this thing called the internet and YouTube. So there's probably some videos out there too that you can watch. And if you find out that this child that says they want to be a nurse and then starts to watch some things and pass out, now I'm not saying you can't get over that and actually become a nurse, but I'd be like, oh, I can't handle the bodily functions. I can't handle the blood. Okay, well, great. Let's not spend any more time on that. I have done with my kids, taken them places, and I thought for sure they were going to love it. And they decided no. I was like, okay, here we go. I am allowing them to take the lead on it. But I know things. I have wisdom. I have more experience. I understand things. I have connections in the world that I'm going to give them some insight. I'm going to provide some opportunities. And then I'm just going to ask, is that something you want to pursue? So one thing, for example, my current high schooler, we went and looked at a couple of different possibilities for next steps as far as education and specialties. And I know that he could do any one of those, and he could do it well. But when it came down to it, he said, no, I'm actually not interested. I was like, that's fine, because we don't want to go and spend thousands of dollars if that's not really what you want to do. If you change your mind, that's fine. We will definitely do that. We will help you and support you and get those next steps. He's like, no, I really want to pursue this instead. Okay, maybe that'll die in the water and then we'll go back to the other thing, but that's okay. But having that exposure and having that information really helps them to make those decisions, because making the decisions is important, because if we don't show them and teach them how to make decisions for next steps, they're going to have a hard time when they do get out making those decisions. Okay. Last thing I want to mention before I close out, I said this is going to be a shorter episode, but I knew it wouldn't be because I like this topic and this subject. I highly recommend that your homeschool high schooler takes a gap year. Now, this can feel like it throws a wrench in plans for next steps, but it's okay to take that pause for a couple months, to take that pause for a year. Maybe it's even 2 years. They decide to go and do something, go on the mission field, or go to Bible school or some type of ministry, something for 4 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. It is not lost time. God is working and teaching them, and they are learning in that way. If you're like, what is a gap year? I do have an entire episode about gap years, and I will drop that link for you in the show notes. I highly recommend you to listen to that one no matter what, and refresh your mind too if you have listened to it from a while ago. But before I close out, if you are looking for some help to get the meals on the table, have all the things you need to be able to prepare those meals that were within your budget and that meet your nutrition desires for your family, why don't you go check out littlebylittlehomeschool.com/meal. The link is in the show notes for you too, so that you can take the stress, the anxiety, and the decision fatigue out of making those decisions and just get some food on the table, get everybody filled up, and then get on with your day.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.